Number one story of the week comes from the Chargers. Chargers only had one player play well offensively at Atlanta. Ladd McConkey was unstoppable. 8 first half catches for Ladd McConkey. Was about to go nuts. Justin Herbert ended up only throwing it 23 times, and Ladd banged up his knee later. But regardless, 52% target share for Ladd McConkey in a game. Again, he left early in. I mean, Chargers look like they have a very, very big hit here with Ladd McConkey, Evan, and it's accentuated by the fact that Quentin Johnston still can't play. Josh Palmer can't play. They can't even get DJ Chark on the field. You get these huge Ladd McConkey target share games lately. So we don't know the status of his knee injury right now. Jim Harbaugh is doing the thing where he doesn't really say what's going on. We'll see. But man, it's really impressive on Ladd right now. Any thoughts on that and other Chargers thoughts from Sunday?
Yeah, I saw some skepticism regarding Ladd McConkey's injury from a beat writer on Monday, but we're still a ways out. They play on Sunday night against Kansas City this week. We'll see how it goes. I agree with you. I think that McConkey was a monster hit. He looks like a truly, legitimately special player who can be a legit number one for one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. DJ Shark was active for this game, but only played 3 snaps. So he did not jump right in and cut into struggling Quentin Johnston's playing time. But I mean, the Chargers in this game only ran 46 plays. This was their Kirk Cousins just giving the ball to the other team game. And the Chargers didn't really have them. They played stout defense. They caught the balls that Kirk Cousins threw to them, and they didn't even have to do much on offense.
Yeah, the next step to me for the Chargers is this March. Go give T. Higgins the money. Line up T. Higgins across from Ladd McConkey and see what you can do there offensively. That would be super exciting. The other reason that the Chargers I thought was a big story this week is because J.K. Dobbins landed on IR. He's out at least 4 games here. So rest of fantasy season, no J.K. Dobbins. In this game, again, as Evan said, they only ran 46 plays. Gus Edwards got 6 carries. Kimani Vidal got 4 carries. The snaps were Gus 24, Vidal 12, Hassan Haskins 7. Not a lot of takeaways there for me, kind of what we expected. The biggest takeaway for me is that Kimani Vidal only played 12 snaps. He ran 6 routes on those. So pretty good route rate there for Kimani Vidal, just like we talked about last week. I think in setups where the Chargers get behind and Herbert has to throw a lot, we will see plenty of Vidal, and he would be the running back that I would want to start. Obviously, it's difficult to predict exactly when they're going to be behind by a lot. But you could see at Kansas City, even though we'll get to Kansas City in a little, they're not playing very well. At least you could maybe see it there. So that was the Vidal take for me. Any more thoughts on running back, Evan, before we move on here?
Yeah, and to clarify, J.K. Dobbins is on IR, so he's definitely going to miss at least 3 more games. There's going to be opportunities here. This box score sucks just to look at. And the Chargers, before I said that they didn't have to do much on offense, they were actually bad on offense in this game. They gave up 5 sacks to the Falcons. Yeah. The Falcons came into the game with 10 sacks on the season. The Chargers did not score an offensive touchdown. This was the Chargers' worst offensive performance of the season, really. So I wouldn't have many takeaways from this box score besides the massive target share for Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, maybe you can excuse it away. They were on a short week, going across the country. Some of the stuff we talked about on Sunday, I kind of brushed that off, but Evan kept bringing it up, and yeah, maybe that was part of it. All right. Story number 2 is San Francisco. It's over now, man. It's like officially over. Yeah, they're mathematically still alive to make the playoffs, but they got absolutely trucked in a snow game at Buffalo on Sunday night. Christian McCaffrey is done for the season. Trent Williams didn't play again. Bosa didn't play again. I mean, they just have so many injuries, and it's sad on CMC because he actually looked really good early, the best he's looked so far in this snow game. 6 carries, 58 yards right out of the gate. And then he just kind of pops his knee. It wasn't the calf thing, but man, these compensation stuff, you could see how it could be related. Achilles is bothering him. Calf is bothering him. Now he pops his knee. Not great on McCaffrey stuff long-term, obviously. Seems like we are at the eulogy portion of the 49ers season here. Evan, any thoughts on their latest embarrassment this time Sunday night in Buffalo?
Yeah, and it's not just the headliners that we're talking about they're injured for San Francisco. I mean, they've lost key defensive linemen. Kevin Givens is done for the year with a torn pec. Nick Bosa has been out with no timetable for a return from his oblique injury. Jordan Elliott suffered a concussion. Um, they are all sorts of banged up. They've also got nothing from Ricky Pearsall. I don't think he has a catch over the last 3 weeks. Their first round pick. They're going to go heavy on Isaac Garendo, who's been like one of your favorite sleepers since the offseason. Speed score freak, ran 4.33 at 221 pounds coming out of college. Didn't have a lot of college production. The tape bros did not like him, but man, he has looked good in his opportunities. He is averaging 5.9 yards per carry on 42 attempts. So it's not a minuscule sample size. He's also got 5 catches. I also think that Patrick Taylor behind him, who played at Memphis in that same sort of era with Tony Pollard and Antonio Gibson, not quite as athletically gifted, but a guy that has gotten opportunities, practice squad opportunities, and now he's going to be the number 2 for San Francisco moving forward. And I think he could actually play a little bit more than people anticipate. So I think that he's a big time pickup as well. Obviously, Garendo could be a league winner down the stretch.
For sure. And yeah, Jordan Mason, to be clear, Christian McCaffrey's done for the year. Jordan Mason is also done for the year here. And so they're down to Garendo and Patrick Taylor. Yeah, they've shown a willingness to give Garendo work. Garendo in that game against Dallas a little bit before Halloween, he had 14 carries, also caught 3 passes in that game. Garendo has also had a chance to score 2 more touchdowns and slid down purposely, made the right play both times, slid down purposefully to not score a touchdown. So Garendo's line would look even better if not for that obvious, easiest pickup of the week. As Evan said, the speed score stuff is ridiculous. Only 2 guys in the last 20 years have been this big and run this fast: DK Metcalf and Isaac Garendo. So
yeah, is it Jover for Debo Samuel? By the way, under 25 yards from scrimmage in 3 straight games.
Yeah,
turns 29 in January.
Seems like, well, first of all, this snow game, if you guys watched it, I thought the weather was gonna be okay. It seemed like it was. The forecast looked okay, and then it just got real bad. Nobody could really move out there laterally. So it was not a spot where I'm going to say Debo's definitely done. What I will say is now that they're 7% to make the playoffs, Debo's been banged up. Kittle's been banged up. I'm worried about these guys kind of fighting through stuff down the stretch. I'd love to see more Pearsall for sure. But, I'm not going to say the offense can't score points because that snow game was really, really ugly. They play the Bears next. San Francisco. So interesting spot there. Third story of the week is the Chiefs. This was a home game for the Chiefs on Black Friday against the lowly Raiders. And again, they need miracles to hang on for a 19-17 win. I don't want to turn this into a bash the Chiefs show. The reason I thought this was a big story is because we got the return of Isaiah Pacheco. He played 26 snaps, Pacheco did, first 27 for Kareem Hunt. They each got 7 carries. Kareem Hunt, 4 targets on 20 routes. Pacheco, 1 target on 10 routes. I thought Pacheco looked pretty good, though, considering what he was coming off of and how long he'd been out. Evan, what do you think of Pacheco's return and any other Chiefs thoughts?
I thought he looked great, and I thought that he injected some big play ability into the offense, and that's something that they have lacked over the course of the season, certainly from their backfield. I mean, Kareem Hunt has no big play ability. I think his long run on the season is 17. Pacheco jumps right back in, banks a 34-yarder. So I think it's just a matter of time before he retakes over as the Chiefs' 1A back. I thought Hopkins looked really good in his opportunities. He has not been a full-time player this season. What were his snaps like in this one?
I don't have it, but he's been kind of hovering, but his targets per route run has been really strong. So even if he's not playing a ton of snaps, you can still play DeAndre Hopkins.
Well, there's a draft pick compensation thing here.
Yeah.
That I think that the Chiefs are clearly monitoring, so that the draft pick that they gave up for him doesn't upgrade if he plays a certain number of snaps. So I think, and it also makes sense from them from just an on-field standpoint. He's an older player. They've got a bunch of older players in their pass catcher core. It makes sense to keep him at a certain threshold. But yeah, I think that when he has gotten opportunities, he's looked like his old self.
I mean, if I was the Chiefs, I wouldn't really care about the draft pick. To me, this guy is 31 with knee injury. They're going to be in the playoffs. If they lose Hopkins, I don't know that they can win the Super Bowl. So I would be real cautious not to lose him. So I think that's part of it too. Other big story, Evan. Rap Sheet is reporting that Hollywood Brown, who most people thought it was assumed he was done for the year, Hollywood Brown sounds like he's going to go for clearance sometime in the next couple weeks with a target to play in week 16 or week 17. I think that would be a big boost for them. And honestly, like he could have an impact in fantasy too. The play he got hurt on right out of the gate, I mean, they were excited. They threw a scheme play to Hollywood Brown, one of the first plays of their season. He just busted his SC joint on that play. So I'm kind of excited about Holly Brown. I don't know that you'd be able to like confidently start him in a fantasy league in your playoffs in his first or second game back, but I'm at least monitoring it. Any thoughts on the return of Hollywood, Evan?
I think that he could be an impact player for them in the playoffs, in the real life NFL playoffs. I wouldn't be anticipating, you know, week 17 impact or anything like that.
Yeah.
I do like that they've gotten Xavier Worthy a little bit more consistently involved. He went through a stretch where he was like goose egging, and now he's to the point where he's getting 4 or 5 catches per game. I continue to be impressed with Noah Gray,
Yeah.
a player who they extended. I think it was in training camp or early in the season. And I don't know, I was watching this game with a bunch of Chiefs fans. Like they love Noah Gray. Noah Gray has had a couple of multiple touchdown games. He's really become like a significant factor in the offense, in the passing game. Last year he played 40-50% of the Chiefs' offensive snaps, but he wasn't really a factor in the passing game concepts. This year he has been.
27 routes on 52 dropbacks for Noah Gray in this game. Travis Kelce ran 46 routes. So still lagging behind Kelce pretty far on routes, but Noah Gray certainly looks explosive out there for the tight end position. Last note on the Chiefs, schedule is difficult. I mean, Chargers, Browns, Texans next 3 games, then in the fantasy championship at Steelers for the Chiefs. So not the easiest spots coming up for the Chiefs offense to get right.
One last note. So Mahomes took 5 sacks in this game. How many hits did he take? 12. The Chiefs have a big problem at offensive tackle right
Oh, yeah.
now, particularly left tackle. By the end of this game, they had Joe Tooney because they can't trust Wanya Morris or the rookie. They had Joe Tooney out there, their left guard. They're like all pro left guard. They're going to move him to left tackle because they don't trust the other guys. That breaks up one of the better interiors in the league. They signed DJ Humphries off the street. DJ Humphries, longtime Cardinals, kind of up and down, but always a talented guy. Was a first round pick. Longtime Cardinals left tackle, and he was on the sidelines for this game. I think that he will be starting sooner rather than later. I mean, they've got to try something different because Mahomes is under an incredible amount of duress. You cannot have Patrick Mahomes taking 12 hits in an individual game.
It's not just the Raiders. The Panthers put a ton of hits on Mahomes the week before also. And during the broadcast, they showed Mahomes like yelling something at Reed. I think what he was saying is, we got to get these tackles out of here. We got to do something else, And after the game, I know Andrew Whitworth was like, oh, maybe the Chiefs will call me. Andrew Whitworth does the broadcast on those Prime games on Amazon. So, yeah. Number 4 story comes from Chicago. So this was the Thanksgiving game. The Bears and Caleb were awful in the first half. I mean, looked like the worst offense in the NFL. Second half, Caleb and the offense find the groove. He gets real hot to DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. But at the end of the game, they blow this clock management spot. A lot of the blame was on Caleb. Some of the blame was on Eberflus, whatever. Eberflus gets fired the next day. Thomas Brown goes from, I don't know, he was like running backs coach or whatever. Then Waldron got fired. They made him offensive coordinator. Now Eberflus fired and Thomas Brown is the head coach the rest of the way. Evan, what do you think about the way that ran out, and any more Bears thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Matt Eberflus at the end of games, just consistently at the end of games, making horrible decisions. It's like he freezes or something. He's unwilling to call timeouts. I don't know. We don't need to talk about him. It became clear. I mean, there was a report that came out today that Ryan Poles wanted to fire him after last season, but the McCaskies, they don't want. They're not one of the richest ownership groups, and they often take the cheap way out. And this has been really the number one reason why the Bears haven't been good in a really long time. They don't want to pay a coach that has guaranteed money to be not coaching.
Yeah.
So We don't have to talk about that. It would be interesting to talk about who the Bears might hire going forward. I actually think that they should look at Todd Monken, the Ravens offensive coordinator. Bill Belichick has been a guy that's been bandied about. Cliff Kingsbury came up. Ben Johnson, obviously, the Lions offensive coordinator. But I mean, Thomas Brown has done a pretty good job
Yeah.
so far for them. I mean, he's made enough changes that they're back to at least being a competitive team. They've lost a ton of one-score games this year. I mean, they're not like a terrible team by any means, but they are the classic team finds a way to lose. I did like it that we were getting trolled in the first half when Caleb was playing poorly
Yeah.
by a fellow by the name of a known troll named Dan Front, which is a play on Dan Back, the famous Roto Grinders host. And then by the second half, I think Caleb outscored every quarterback on the slate, or
Yeah.
at least for his price, he easily paid off. So shout out to Dan Front. Good commentary.
Yeah, back to the Thomas Brown thing. I do think he's made a difference, right? Like they have played better, they have played smarter, and it's been super condensed. Snaps in that game, there were 67. Cole Kmet played 66. DJ Moore 65. Keenan Allen 64. Roma Dunze 52. So it's getting real tight here. DJ Moore saw 16 targets, 41% share here. A lot of Roma Dunze's targets have been uncatchable, wild stuff. To me, the safest play, it's hard to predict on a week-to-week basis, but the safest play to me is DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. Roschon Johnson also left this game with a concussion. That's something to monitor for the DeAndre Swift stuff as they go into a game against a San Francisco defense, which at this point, we just have to call bad, so just bad. Fifth story comes from the Monday night game. The Browns. I mean, one of the wildest games of the year happened last night, and you never could have predicted it would be between the Browns and the Broncos. Ends up 41-32. That's Jameis, man. Dude is just the best. Yeah, he threw 2 pick sixes. Yeah, he threw 3 interceptions overall, but he also went 34 of 58 for 497 yards and 4 touchdowns. I know people are tired of us talking about this, but we've been begging for Jameis Winston to get under center for years now to make wide receivers great again, to make the pass game in the NFL great again. He is a wide receiver and pass catcher kingmaker along the same lines as Matthew Stafford, maybe even better than Matthew Stafford. All these guys, it's like, I'm so tired of this. Like, people are so fickle. Oh, Jerry Jeudy sucks. He's terrible. He's one of the worst wide receivers I've ever seen. All it takes is 5 games with Jameis Winston for people to say, Jerry Jeudy's awesome. How did they not see it with Jerry Jeudy? It's like so ridiculous. So, love Jameis. What a wild game. Evan, any thoughts on Brown stuff here going forward?
Yeah, and this was also a massive revenge game for Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
I mean, this meant something to him. Clearly, Jameis Winston knew it meant something to him. And Jerry Jeudy, you remember when the Browns acquired him and they gave him like kind of a lot of guaranteed money? It seemed at least commensurate with his production in Denver. That contract now is looking awesome. I really hope that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski do not fall on the sword because Deshaun Watson sucks at football and at life, because they don't deserve that. And yeah, absolutely, Jameis Winston being back. I mean, Njoku scores 2 touchdowns. Elijah Moore is having big games kind of consistently for the first time in his life. A lot of Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
And that's because they were behind some, and they're playing like a back and forth affair. But I think that we can say pretty safely that it's probably not going to happen for Nick Chubb, at least not this year.
Yeah. Couple things. Cedric Tillman missed this game with a concussion. I think that matters, right? It made it more condensed to Elijah Moore, Jerry Jeudy, and David Njoku. So we'll see Tillman's status for this week, but I do think that matters when we're thinking about playing these guys. Nick Chubb, man, 2.3 yards per carry again. He was outplayed by Jerome Ford. They actually asked Kevin Stefanski at halftime, like, is Nick Chubb hurt? He was like, no, Nick Chubb's good to go, but Jerome Ford's in there running it well. So, I don't, it was such a severe injury for a guy who's had severe injuries on that knee before. I agree it's probably not going to happen for Nick Chubb being super efficient this year. They play at Steelers versus Chiefs next, couple toughish spots, and then at Bengals versus Dolphins to close it out here for Jameis and all these stars. But man, I'd love to have Njoku, Judy, Tillman down the stretch here. Elijah Moore. I mean,
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Yep.
All right. Let's go to the NFC now. We'll go in alphabetical order. Start with the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals went to Minnesota, lost a heartbreaker 23-22. Season high 51 dropbacks in this game for Kyler Murray, but generates just 260 passing yards and 1 touchdown on that. He did get Marvin Harrison going a little bit. We talked about that Sunday morning on the squeaky wheel stuff. Evan, what'd you think of Arizona's game up in Minnesota?
Yeah. So, we talked about this going in a little bit, that the Vikings really, the way that they play defense is a really tough matchup for the way that the Cardinals play offense, because the Cardinals offense is very much centered around their running game, which has been very good for the vast majority of the season, but it hasn't been very good lately. But the Vikings have the best run defense in the league by almost every metric. And then the Vikings blitz a ton, and Kyler is not great against the blitz. Like, both of his interceptions in this game came against the blitz. They blitzed him on like half of his dropbacks, and the Cardinals didn't run the ball with efficiency. And there you go. I mean, the Cardinals were winning for the majority of the game, but not by much, and wound up losing by 1 point because Sam Darnold had an awesome fourth quarter. But it just wasn't a good matchup from the get-go for the Cardinals. I thought it was interesting. I was listening to Robert Mays on The Athletic, and he was talking about addressing the relative struggles of Marvin Harrison Jr., who's had a fine rookie year, but certainly, probably lower, has not met expectations, I would say. And he kind of compared Marvin Harrison to DK Metcalf as a big guy who doesn't necessarily always play with the size of a big guy, and maybe is a little limited as a route runner. So I thought that was an interesting observation, because I know Robert Mays, is a very good analyst. We've had him on, and but for people that are wondering why, that might be a possible explanation for why he's fallen short of expectations.
For sure. Trey McBride had another incredible game. This guy is so good, and again, didn't score. He now has 73 receptions on the season and 0 touchdowns. Just doesn't make any sense. Last night on the Cardinals I had, this one kind of flew under the radar. Cardinals gave James Conner a 2-year contract extension over Thanksgiving. This guy's going to turn 30 in May. It's well-deserved. It's not that much money. I'm not going to kill them for it, but I thought it was just an interesting note, considering they drafted Trey Benson also, I believe, in the second round of the draft this year. So yeah, Conner gets the bag here on a 2-year extension. Let's go to Atlanta. Really concerning game for Kirk Cousins here, home against the Chargers. Yes, Chargers defense has been excellent this year, but this was really bad Kirk Cousins. 24 of 39, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions as they lose at home. And that's when you get the put Penix in calls, right? Everybody's saying, put Penix in, put Penix in, put Penix in. Evan, what do you think of Cousins' meltdown against the Chargers?
Oh, man, this was really, really ugly. I mean, this was really, really ugly. Did you see some of the? I mean, it looked like the balls were floating on air.
Yeah.
The one that the rookie, I can't pronounce his name, the rookie took back. I mean, Cousins throws an absolute float. It was like the easiest pick six you will ever see. All he had to do was catch it and run, and he was gone. I mean, he can generate no velocity. He can't move. He creates limitations on their running offense because he can't move and they can't run play action. He's just in the. I think you got to go to Michael Penix. I do not think it's an overreaction to say it's time to go to Michael Penix when you've lost 3 in a row. And during that time frame, your quarterback, who's supposed to be super efficient, like completing 70% of his passes, is completing 62% with 0 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and 4 fumbles in losses to the Saints, Broncos, and Chargers. I mean, again, the Chargers did not play well. They played bad offense in this game. It's just the Falcons were even worse because Kirk Cousins was throwing the ball to the other team on easy interceptions. I think you have to go to Michael Penix. I think that they'll give it another game. If they lose another game, they have to. He's the number 8 overall pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to go to him.
Well, and the Bucks are coming hard. I mean, the Bucks went from like
Yeah.
3-1, 4-1 to win this division. Now the Bucks are down to like plus 120 to win this division. So, I mean, they're coming hard for the Falcons here. One other note, and I forget who, I saw someone say this on Twitter. I apologize, but maybe Michael Penix is a talent elevator, right? Roma Dunze hasn't been that good in the NFL. Jalen Polk has been a mess. Jalen McMillan hasn't been very good. Maybe it was Penix that was elevating these guys. And if you're the Falcons, maybe you want to get a look at that, you know? So I think that's an interesting take and maybe a reason to do it.
Yeah. And they've got the Vikings coming up too. I mean, and they play a super exotic defense. It's going to be another tough one for Kirk Cousins.
By the way, Falcons were trailing for much of this game, and you get Bijan with 32 opportunities. I mean, you tell me that they're going to be losing in games. I want to play Bijan. Ended up playing Bijan on FanDuel this week, which really turned out well. But man, 32 opportunities here for Bijan. Guy is really, really good at the game.
Kyle Pitts,
Oh,
39% of the snaps,
yeah.
goose eggs. Over his last 4 games combined, he has 6 catches for 75 scoreless yards. He is like vanished. And Charlie Warner, they got him from San Francisco, blocking tight end, has been playing quite a bit. Totally different player than Kyle Pitts, who doesn't block. So they've been going with the blocker.
I mean, this is 2 separate coaching staffs that have not made Kyle Pitts a priority, whatsoever. So yeah, not looking great there whatsoever. It was also good to see Darnell Mooney back and healthy. I know he didn't have a good game here, but back and healthy from the hamstring. All right. Carolina. You get another really strong performance from Bryce Young here. I mean, he threw it 46 times. He only completed 26 of those, but 298 yards while throwing to Adam Thielen, Tommy Tremble, Xavier Legette, David Moore. It's pretty good. Are you ready to change your mind at all on Bryce Young, Evan? Because there's a lot of people out there that are saying, well, maybe we didn't give him enough time before. Now the Panthers shouldn't take a quarterback in the top 10 of the draft, et cetera, et cetera. Any new thoughts on Bryce Young and any other Panthers thoughts?
Well, for some context, this was one of the best quarterback matchups that you can draw up. Tampa Bay. They got Carolina has Philadelphia, in Philly coming up next. So opinions can change week to week, but I would say that what Bryce Young has shown over the last maybe 4 or 5 games, since he came back from them sitting him down, he's shown that we can have hope that he can be a competent NFL starter.
Yeah.
I still am extremely skeptical that he'll ever come anywhere close to meeting expectations associated with being the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. But I think that he can be a competent starter at this moment in time.
Adam Thielen played really well here, right? And remember last year, Adam Thielen started off white hot and then sputtered. This time, he banged up his hamstring. He's been out for so long. Seems like he has some gas here down the stretch. Obviously, don't want to play him against the Eagles, but the Panthers do have some good matchups in the fantasy playoffs here coming up, which I think is interesting. We'll be watching for Jalen Coker's status. He was out here. Jatavian Sanders was also out for this game. We'll see on his status as well. Last note, Jonathan Brooks played 5 snaps in his NFL debut. In this game, he played 15. Now, Chuba played 55, so the split was still really wide. But Jonathan Brooks, I thought, looked good on his 15 snaps, caught 3 balls, got a goal line chance. So I think we're going to project that to continue to get closer between Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks here, with Chuba still clearly ahead, but Jonathan Brooks playing a little bit more. Let's go to Dallas. Thanksgiving win for Cooper Rush and the Cowboys. They did it with their defense, and they did it with Rico Dowdle. And we're finally getting what should have been happening all season, full Rico. Last 2 games, Rico Dowdle, 92 snaps and 47 touches. Ezekiel Elliott, 22 snaps and 4 touches. So you suddenly have a pretty exciting player here in Rico Dowdle on your team. They get the Bengals and then the Panthers in their next 2 games. That's pretty exciting. I mean, 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL. So exciting for Rico people out there. Evan, any other thoughts on Dallas?
Brandon Cooks came back, scored a touchdown. They used a pretty wide-ranging rotation of like numbers 2 through 5 receivers. So not a whole lot of definition there behind CD Lamb. Schoonmaker had another nice, efficient day. He had 6 targets, caught 5 of them. Jake Ferguson could be back this week. He's missed, 2 games now with a concussion. I would think that he probably will be back. CeeDee Lamb did leave with a shoulder injury. I don't know the extent of it, though. I haven't seen any updates.
It's these AC sprains, man. And when these guys get them and they try to play through them, they can get aggravated so easily. We saw it happen to Jordan Mason this year where they're like, oh, yeah, he's fine. He's got a minor shoulder thing. It's minor until you aggravate it, which seems to be happening a lot. So I'm not overly comfortable with CeeDee Lamb in like cash type settings in DFS right now, but the ceiling I think is still intact. On the Brandon Cooks thing, similar to Adam Thielen, maybe it'll be better for Brandon Cooks that he missed so much time. This was Brandon Cooks' first game since week 4, and he might have some gas here down the stretch. Again, Bengals this week at home and then at Panthers. Those are 2 really good spots for Cooper Rush and this entire offense, really. Let's go to Detroit. This was a frustrating day for the Lions, who absolutely dominated that Thanksgiving first half, but settled for field goals. They're forced to hang on in the second half for a narrow win over the Bears. This was a spot where everyone was healthy except for Khalif Raymond, and it gets really balanced. It can get really balanced when that happens. No one had more than a 20% target share in this game. Evan, what do you think of Lions' narrow win over the Bears on Thanksgiving?
I thought that I was really excited on the Lions. I think it was their first or second drive. There had been no touchdown scored. I had Tim Patrick first touchdown scorer, and it was 3rd and goal. And Goff and Patrick is kind of open in the end zone, and Goff sails one over his head. So that one hurt. Patrick did have a nice catch down the field, like a 30-yarder, but I think that was it.
Yeah,
that was the extent of his production. But you're right. I mean, it's a pretty condensed 3-receiver set with him, Jameson Williams, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. When you're minus Khalif Raymond, Khalif Raymond's on IR, so that's going to continue. Big revenge game for David Montgomery. They fed the crap out of him, both in the running and the receiving games. That came at the expense of Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think that Jahmyr Gibbs was punished or anything for that stupid thing. I mean, I think they just wanted to feed David Montgomery. We've talked about this a lot. They're kind of like a narrative. They like to lean into the narratives when they can, and they did. I mean, the Bears gave him a run, but I mean, David Montgomery had a real nice day.
Yeah, and by the way, the snaps weren't that wide, right? It was Montgomery 38 snaps, Gibbs 32. I know a lot of people are freaking out about the way Gibbs was used because he got out-carried 21-9. I don't think anyone expects that to be sticky. They do get a long week here, home against the Packers next. Wanted to highlight that Week 17 game, fantasy championship for the Lions, because at first I was like, San Francisco can play D. That might not be that great of a spot. But given the state of San Francisco now, Lions fantasy championship week against the 49ers, that's a good spot. That's a good spot.
It is. It's actually not a long week because it's Thanksgiving. Now they're playing the Thursday night game.
Oh, that's
I
right.
posted the Thursday night matchup. You should read it because the people should read it because it's like the Lions are kind of like really banged up on defense right now. I think that this is a spot where the Packers could pull an upset. I also think the Packers are like legit good, and we'll get to them. But the Lions are really banged up in their defensive front seven. We know the Packers like to run the ball, but that's posted on the site, the Thursday night Packers-Lions matchup.
Yeah, should be a really good one on Thursday. 51.5 total there on that game.
Yeah, that's the biggest total of the week, too.
All right, speaking of the Packers, let's go to them next. I thought this was a sharp game from Jordan Love on that night game on Thanksgiving. Takes 0 sacks, doesn't turn it over. Packers get out to a 24-3 halftime lead in really cold conditions. Impressed, I thought, with Jordan Love. Evan, any more thoughts on the Thanksgiving performance of the Packers in their easy win over the Dolphins?
Yeah, I mean, another game where they ran the ball with pretty good volume. They've consistently been doing that with Josh Jacobs. He's really hit his stride, I think, sort of in the second half of the season. And now he's got another nice matchup coming up, I think, against Detroit. This is going to end up being a positive matchup. Romeo Doubs sat this game out with a concussion. I expect him to be back.
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Kraft, who had been really, really quiet in the previous couple games, I think he had 3 targets combined over their previous 2 games. He wound up leading the team in targets and went 6 for 78. Yeah, Jaden Reed had 2 touchdowns, but only 24 yards. Not a ton of huge takeaways. Jordan Love has been really, really efficient. They're one of the most balanced offense in terms of run to pass ratio. And I don't even think that really matters in the grand scheme of things, but it matters to them. They're well coached. They've got a butt kicking offensive line. They've got a true workhorse running back, and they've got a quarterback who can be really efficient. I mean, it's working for them.
For sure. And yeah, when everyone's out there, even with Dobbs out, it didn't really get condensed. I mean, Christian Watson had some big chances, couldn't come up with it. Dontavian Wicks got tackled at the 1-inch line. But now that we get Dobbs back, like, it's really hard to project anything but flattish production across the board here in the pass game. Rams. Really underwhelming performance here by Matthew Stafford in what I thought was a great spot. He completes just 14 passes at New Orleans. Puka Nacua had a quiet day. He was saved by a touchdown. Cooper Kupp was a massive fail. And then it was really interesting what they did at running back. Kyron had fumbled twice coming into this game. The first, I believe it was 5 touches of the game, went to Blake Corum as, I guess, punishment to Kyron. And then they go back to full Kyron, who ended up hitting as a leverage play off of the pass game. So a bit weird there. Evan, what do you think of Rams game down in New Orleans?
Well, my one of the notes I had is that Matthew Stafford suffered a lateral ankle sprain. Matthew Stafford's one of the toughest quarterbacks in the NFL. He's going to play through that, but it was a note. Demarcus Robinson suffered a hand injury. It sounds like he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, yeah, it was a pretty uneventful game. They beat a bad team. The Rams are up to 6-6.
Yep.
Now, in what is still a pretty wide open NFC West, they have, I was looking at the probabilities, they have like a 25% chance still to win the division. But Seattle's in first, Arizona's in second. Seattle's at like 35%.
Rams are in it, like Evan said, and they have a pretty good schedule down the stretch here. It was concerning for me this game, but I don't want to like freak out because they do get Niners, Jets, and Cardinals in their last 3 games, 3 reasonable spots here for the Rams. Vikings. Vikings escape with a 23-22 win at home over the Cardinals. Really aggressive game plan here from Kevin O'Connell. 39 Sam Darnold dropbacks, 11 running back carries. I know they were trailing for a lot of this game, but still. Aaron Jones also fumbled twice in this game, lost one of them. I really like Justin Jefferson in this game. He was solid, but not explosive, was not exactly what I needed. Evan, any thoughts on Vikings' performance against the Cardinals here?
Yeah, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was like the reason that they won in the end. He was under a ton of pressure in this game. By the way, the Cardinals defense, sort of like Seattle's defense, is kind of becoming a defense to take seriously. The Cardinals sacked Sam Darnold 5 times. He was under pressure on 54% of his dropbacks and had to rally back from a 13-point deficit, but he did. Sam Darnold's going to get a big contract this offseason.
Oh, yeah.
He signed, I believe it was a 1-year, $10 million with Minnesota. So he is due to be a free agent. He's going to get a lot of money. And it's a year where the quarterback draft class is not supposed to be very good. He's going to get a lot of money.
What do you think of the Daniel Jones stuff? Obviously, Giants let go of Daniel Jones. He latches on with the Vikings here. I thought it was a sharp decision from Daniel Jones, just in that you get with Kevin O'Connell, you're going to play better quarterback when you're in this scheme if he's able to get in there. What do you think of the Daniel Jones decision?
Well, I thought that he should have went to San Francisco because Brock Purdy has, this dealing with this injury, and Josh Dobbs and Brandon Allen, like, you could jump those guys real quick. And I think that Daniel Jones actually would be a pretty good fit for the Shanahan offense. Kevin O'Connell runs a similar offense. So I thought it was fine. I think it's smart for the Vikings to give him a look. He's going to be cheaper than Sam Darnold in the offseason. And maybe he could be the guy that they use to sort of insurance against J.J. McCarthy coming off the torn meniscus, and the veteran sort of complement to J.J. McCarthy.
Let's go to New Orleans. So they lose this home game to the Rams. They lose Taysom Hill, who's been operating as like the focal point of the franchise. They lose Taysom Hill for the year. to a torn ACL. So bad times for New Orleans get even worse here. Obviously, when you remove Taysom, you're going to get opportunities for other guys. My biggest thing, Evan, going down the stretch here and talk to Daigle about this, Dennis Allen is gone. Does Kendry Miller have any life? If I'm the Saints, I don't want to run Alvin Kamara into the ground here in a dead season down the stretch when you gave him an extension. He's going to be back. Let's see what we have in Kendry Miller for maybe 8 or 10 touches. Dennis Allen, I mean, the Riz master, Darren Rizzi, was like, I don't really know why he's on IR. It's just Dennis Allen hated this guy. So I thought that was an interesting one. Evan, any thoughts on that or any other Saints stuff?
Well, I mean, honestly, has Darren Rizzi even ever met Kendra Miller? I mean, Darren Rizzi was like the special teams coach. I mean, I don't even know for sure that he knows who Kendra Miller is. Yeah, Taysom Hill, that really sucks. Apparently, it's an ACL with additional damage.
Yeah.
He turns 35 before next season.
Yeah.
So we might have seen the best. We might have seen the best of Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
That might be in the rear view mirror. Yeah, I don't really have any other big notes here. I will say that it looks like Lucas Patrick and Eric McCoy, who have been in and out of the lineup, they should be back this week, starting left guard and starting center for the Saints. And that would put their offensive line back at full strength. No Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara wheels up.
Yeah. And more Juwan Johnson, we'll see. We talked about that a little bit more with Daigle on the waiver wire show.
And they're facing the Giants, who have been terrible in run defense and just lost Dexter Lawrence for the season.
Yeah. I mean, Kamara is going to have an outrageous role and project outrageously well, yet again, considering the team that he's playing on. Giants. I mean, Drew Lock looked worse than Tommy DeVito for much of this game. I mean, pick 6 on a deflected ball, takes 6 sacks, lost a fumble. I get that he's playing without his starting right tackle and his starting left tackle against Micah Parsons and the Cowboys, but man, I couldn't believe Drew Lock actually looked worse than DeVito. Evan, any more thoughts on Giants' performance on Thanksgiving down there in Dallas?
I think that Tyrone Tracy continued to outplay Devin Singletary. They used Devin Singletary a little bit more here. Tyrone Tracy has had the issues with the fumbles.
Yeah.
But Tyrone Tracy is clearly their best option. Theo Johnson, who had 5 for 45 on 5 targets in this game, is out for the year now. At least Malik Neighbors came out of this thing with 13 targets and 8 catches. I did notice that Brian Daboll after the game did not commit to sticking with Drew Lock. Coaches don't like Drew Lock. I mean, let's be real. He's rapping on the sidelines, singing "Old Dirty Bastard" or something. And remember how pissed off Vic Fangio used to get at him? I mean, coaches do not like Drew Lock.
Well, you can do that stuff if you're good. Drew Lock sucks. If Patrick Mahomes did that, no one would have a problem with it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's bad for Drew Lock. I think Dexter Lawrence is done for the year, and as Evan mentioned, Theo Johnson is done for the year now as well. Neighbors' line could have been better. I mean, he had some bad drops, at least 2 that I saw that were really bad drops, but still, volume is going to be there at the wide receiver position. A guy who can go out and catch 8, 9, 10 balls in a game, incredibly valuable. Singletary did play a little bit more, but snaps were wide. Tracy, 46, Devin Singletary, 13. So still really like Tyrone Tracy as an asset here down the stretch. Eagles get the signature win of their season. They win at Baltimore to move to 10-2. A lot of Super Bowl talk, man. My friends from Philly, they're booking their room right now for the Super Bowl. They're booking their trip. They think that the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. In terms of the market, Lions are clearly ahead, but now the Eagles are right there with the Bills and a couple other teams as the second choice. They continue to do it, Evan, with this extreme run-heavy style. I mean, everybody tries to throw in the Ravens. Everybody's game plan is throwing the Ravens. Eagles ran it 33 times. Hurts dropped back just 22 times. So, impressive win. What do you think of Eagles game at Baltimore?
Well, I wanted to mention this before I forget it. Eventually, we'll get to the game. But did you see how the Michigan players at the end of Michigan-Ohio State, well, I mean, everybody's seen it, went and planted the flag in the middle of the field, and it caused a big riot. And then out of the scrum came what appeared to be a Michigan fan, went and got the flag and like Ohio State players were trying to rip. Do you know who that was?
No. Oh, was it Jason Avant?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Jason Avant, former 10-year Eagle, went to Michigan, is now a sideline reporter for Michigan, and he went out there and saved the flag. I thought that was really cool because I mean, it just looked like, oh, was that like some student doing that? No, that's freaking NFL player Jason Avant. I saw him doing an interview about it, and he's like, I played in the NFL for 10 years. No one remembers that. They just know me as the guy who got the Michigan flag back. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, the Eagles, man, they are freaking rolling. Do you remember when they were 2-2 and people were like taking pot shots at Howie Roseman?
Yeah.
And I mean, Howie Roseman should be executive of the year.
Yeah.
They went and they changed out their coordinators. Kellen Moore has been killing it. Vic Fangio has been killing it. They fixed the defensive backfield. Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell have been targeted a total of 101 times this season. This is how many touchdowns they've given up combined. 0. Okay? They're built around the offensive line and the defensive line so deep that they lose Brandon Graham and Bryce Huff, and they're still getting after Lamar like relentlessly. Their offensive line dominates. The reason that they stick with the running game, even against a pass funnel defense like the Ravens, is because they can, because they're just going to whip your ass. It sucks that it looks like multi-week for Dallas Goedert on the knee injury. That hurts. They'll go back to a bunch of Grant Calcaterra. Devontae Smith seemed close last week. I would expect him to be back. But, yeah, I mean, I'm just really hoping for Eagles-Lions in the NFC Championship game.
And they play the Panthers this week, do the Eagles. I mean, my God, what is Saquon and this offensive line going to do to the Panthers on Sunday? And, yeah, agree that we're going to start the week with Devontae Smith projected in. Did seem like he was pretty close here this week. The A.J. Brown stuff, I mean, unstoppable again, 6 targets, 5.66-0. They just don't throw enough for A.J. Brown to go off. And I thought this was a spot where they'd have to, and they just didn't. By the way, the Eagles schedule, I know everybody hates, I just keep talking about this, but Panthers this week, week 16 Commanders, week 17 Cowboys. I mean, it's just such a clean run out for the Eagles. So valuable. Seahawks. Seahawks go across the country to MetLife and put another loss on the Jets. They get an interception return for a touchdown. They play good defense, as Evan mentioned, and that's really all you need when you play the Jets. Late in this game, Kenneth Walker appeared to bang up his knee. I have not heard anything about it, but Charbonnet came in and got the touchdown. And honestly, Kenneth Walker hasn't been playing that great anyways. He hasn't been getting very long runs. His longest run in the last 4 games is 14 yards. So a lot of bust and not a lot of boom for Kenneth Walker. So even if his knee is okay, I'm a little worried we start to see a bit more Charbonnet. Evan, what do you think of Seahawks game against the Jets?
Yeah, well, Kenneth Walker is, a boomer bust runner. And when you're getting hit in the back, I mean, you need a little bit of space if you're going to hit boom runs. And he just gets hit in the backfield all the time. The offensive line is the Achilles heel for Seattle, whose defense has been one of the best units over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Geno Smith is 3rd in the NFL in passing yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba has turned into one of the better young receivers in the NFL. He led them in receiving again in this game. Didn't have a big statistical game, but went 4 for 74 on a perfect 4 for 74 on 4 targets. But yeah, the offensive line is just, and there's just no way to fix it at this point in the year. That's their Achilles heel. They are leading the division though in the NFC West now.
For sure. Bucks stay in the hunt for the NFC South title, move to 6-6. It was not easy. I mean, they really need to scrap to get an overtime win at Carolina. Story again is Bucky Irving. Man, this dude looks good. Now, in fairness, he's playing Carolina, and Rachaad White also ripped off 6.9 yards per carry and 11 carries. But Bucky looks like a league winner right now. He has done this to a bunch of different defenses, not just the Panthers. And they didn't use Sean Tucker at all in this game, which obviously makes a big difference. Sean Tucker now a total of 5 snaps in the last 3 games. So I have Bucky on some of my best ball stuff. It hasn't been a great year for me in best ball, but I feel like maybe Bucky, Chase Brown backfields can actually save me here. So yeah, Evan, what do you think of Bucks win at Carolina?
Yeah, and Bucky from like a on-field participation standpoint is not still kind of not where exactly where we want him, but he's inching there. Like over the last 3 weeks, it's like 48% of the snaps, 52, 54. Clearly the pendulum has swung directly in his direction in terms of who's getting the ball, though. And Bucky Irving, wow, what a badass. I mean, did you see the video of him walking out of the stadium into the locker room? Like I mean, he took a bunch of hits. He's
Yeah.
limping, but he's smiling. He's a badass. He's great in the passing game. I mean, they got a real hit here in Bucky Irving, and I'm with you. I think that he's, top 10 running back option the rest of the way. He's been a top 3 guy over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, something we talked about a ton on the rest of season 150 shows and everything is Bucks schedule. They got Giants, Panthers they just played, and now Raiders, Chargers, Cowboys, Panthers. Again, Bucks have a home game against the Panthers in fantasy championship week. That is the nuts. Oh, and by the
What was
way,
the what was the debate that we were having? It was Mike Evans against another receiver?
Mike Evans versus T. Higgins. Evans outplayed him, but it was close. Evans said Mike
Okay.
Evans. Yeah, we had it like 0.5 apart in projection, and he had a good game, but Mike Evans outplayed him.
Okay.
Mike Evans without Chris Godwin is just
Yeah.
the truth, man. Guy is so good. Unreal touchdown catch early in that game for Mike Evans.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield, by the way, third in the NFL in touchdown passes behind only Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson.
He's had a great year.
He did come out of this game with an ankle/foot injury, and he was seen limping on Monday. I mean, Baker isn't missing any time. They got a division to win.
Yeah.
But just something to note.
Last NFC team is the Washington football team. Everyone's on this one. Jaden Daniels was set up well, and he performed 25 of 30, 3 touchdowns, and ran for another touchdown. Did Jaden Daniels. Part of this, though, Evan, was like, man, Titans defend the run really well. And yet Brian Robinson, who came in with a bit of an ankle issue, he averages 6.3 yards per carry before resting late. So overall, impressive offensive performance for the Commies, who, a lot of people were saying Cliff Kingsbury, second half of the year, here he goes, he's dusted. Good game here for Cliff and the offense. Evan, what do you think of Commanders' easy win over the Titans?
Yeah, I was driving, listening to this game. We did our show on Sunday. I did it from the truck stop, and Brian Robinson rips off a 40. I had just been dogging on Brian Robinson on our show, and Jaden Daniels was the pull-up play. Brian Robinson rips a freaking 40-yard touchdown run on like the first drive, and I'm like, oh my god, here we go. But Jaden Daniels wound up. I mean, I think he's back to where he was. I really think that maybe the biggest reason for his like 3 or 4 game lull there was due to the rib injury. He's back to where he was, 9 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown here, 3 touchdown passes, 2 of them to McLaurin. Ertz got the third. I think he's also back in the driver's seat for offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Which Bo Nix was closing in on him there for a minute.
And I also think Brock Bowers has a really good case for not most valuable rookie, but just best player. I think Brock Bowers also has a case. Obviously, I would vote for Jaden or Bo Nix right now. I would vote for Jaden right now, to be clear, but I do think Brock Bowers at least has a case there. We are doing an awards show tomorrow. Myself, Mark, and Ryan will be doing that if you're interested in the awards markets.
Nice.
Austin Eckler went to IR, so he's out at least 4 games here. You see McNichols and Chris Rodriguez here in mop-up duty. It's going to be tough to play either one of those guys, I think, as a standalone. But Eckler out is certainly good for Brian Robinson. Noah Brown also hurt his ribs here. He's been a big part of the offense, so we'll see on that. The good news is bye in week 14 for the Commanders here. Then they play at the Saints, though, and they do have a home game against the Falcons in week 17, fantasy championship week. All right, let's flip it over to the AFC now. Start with the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens fall to 8-5 with a home loss to the Eagles. Justin Tucker stuff, whatever's going on there is what it is. I'm not really that interested in that. Big story to me remains the reemergence of Mark Andrews. Only 27 routes on 45 Lamar dropbacks here, but Mark Andrews' targets per route run has really been ticking up since the disaster start. He's seen 22 targets in the last 4 games, has Mark Andrews. Evan, what do you think of Ravens' loss at home to the Eagles on Sunday?
Yeah, and even with Mark Andrews getting back to where, we wanted him and, where he's been historically, he's back to that level of production on a week to week basis, on a pretty consistent week to week basis. The Ravens have still been able to incorporate Isaiah Likely in a productive manner. And that's something that we've seen throughout the NFL over, we will know that a team has a nice number two tight end, but they can't figure out a way to use both of them. Well, Todd Monken has done that in Baltimore, and my hats are off to him. Also, as we talked about with Kansas City, the Chiefs have done that with Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. But not a lot of teams struggle with that, and the Ravens have not. Rashad Bateman suffered a knee injury in this game. It doesn't sound like it's severe. The Ravens are going into their bye. That did not, lead to production for Deontay Johnson, though. Deontay Johnson has played 39 offensive snaps in 4 games as a Raven. That's right around 10 snaps a game, and he has like 1 catch or something for 6 yards.
Dude, Bateman got hurt in this game. Bateman only lasted
Right.
29 out of 72 snaps, and Deontay Johnson played 0. They didn't even put him on the field. It was Tylan Wallace and Nelson Aguilar. So there's something going on there with Deontay Johnson, even worse than what we originally surmised. Yeah, toughish schedule for the Ravens in the fantasy playoffs. You get the bye here at Giants, whatever, but then home against Steelers, at Texans to finish. Certainly Lamar can have huge games there. I still like him, but just noting. Buffalo. Go ahead.
One thing I wanted to say, Cooper DeJean is an absolute badass. I mean, I have never seen Derrick Henry picked up and dumped
Yeah.
like that in his entire NFL career. This dude has 1 million carries at both the college and the pro levels. I have never seen a defensive back, anybody, but a defensive back tackle Derrick Henry like that.
It's amazing.
Cooper DeJean is fearless.
How good is Derrick Henry that people are freaking out that he happened to get tackled? It's like, hey, Derrick Henry got tackled, and it's like a front page story. I mean, it's insane how good
that is. A one-on-one Oklahoma drill, in space tackle, a decision that a lot of defensive backs would just be like, "Go ahead."
Yeah.
Cooper DeJean went right at him.
Bills. So this was a snow game, much snowier than we or the forecast thought that it would be. Josh Allen still threw for 2 touchdowns, including one to himself. And actually, in the box score, that was scored as a receiving and throwing touchdown. After this win, Josh Allen is now the massive favorite to be the NFL's MVP, like minus 200, minus 300 range. It was hard to get, a real look at this given the conditions, but James Cook again looked very, very good and broke off a big touchdown run there. Evan, any takeaways for you from Bills' win on Sunday Night Football snow game?
Yeah, Bills just trampled them, and the weather was conducive to that, and the mismatches in the trenches were conducive to that. The Bills have a really good offensive line, and that has not been the case in previous years.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the biggest strengths of the team at this point, and they leaned into that here. And, the Bills did this without Keon Coleman, without Dalton Kincaid. Those guys are coming back. And also they got back Matt Milano. He was active for this game, and he can be a difference maker. The Bills, their Super Bowl odds should be as high as anybody's right now.
Yep, they're right there with the Eagles, just behind the Lions in the markets. Good weather stuff coming up here for Buffalo. They play at the Rams next, and then at Lions. And then in weeks 16 and 17, they do get 2 home games, so you get the risk of weather. But man, they play New England and the Jets. So really good, clean run out here for people who are holding Bills assets heading into the playoffs. Bengals. Bengals lose at home to the Steelers despite scoring 38 points. I mean, this defense, how is Lou Anarumo still have a job? I mean, they are getting absolutely torched. They fall to 4-8. They're almost certainly out of the playoffs now, which is sad because Joe Burrow has played an MVP level this year, and it's sad because T. Higgins is going to be gone and this window is closing and all the blame has to be on the defense, but you get these wild shootouts, which are obviously good for fantasy. I mean, what do you think of Bengals' loss to the Steelers?
I think it's the players on defense for Cincinnati. They kind of took the tack that they weren't going to spend money on defense and they were just going to use the draft to replenish it, and they just haven't had hits
Yeah.
in the draft. And they had sort of been playing bend but don't break, decent defense in recent weeks, and then the bottom just fell out right here. I mean, they got torched on downfield passes, they got torched on the ground. But I mean, we talk about offense on this show. Joe Burrow leads the NFL in passing yards. Jamar Chase has 13 receiving touchdowns. Next closest is a tie between Terry McLaurin and Amon-Ra St. Brown at 9.
Yeah.
So, they're a fun fantasy team, at least, in the win. Like they're not catching any breaks in the win-loss department, and a lot of it is their own fault because of the defense. But they're a really fun fantasy team, and Gesicki has turned into like a fairly bankable factor, even with T. Higgins back.
Yeah. So I know I've asked you this before, and I just wanted to bring it up again. The Bengals are almost certainly out of the playoffs now. Given the way that the Bengals have treated T. Higgins, and given that he's going to be a clean free agent, if I was T. Higgins and we were eliminated from the playoffs, I wouldn't keep playing, man. And maybe that's just me. I'm not sure. I would say that something is hurt or whatever, because it's one thing if like the team took care of you and everything, then I would 100% play out the string. If T. Higgins gets hurt here, he is just, and I know he has insurance and everything, but still. So I'm a little worried about T. Higgins. I'm a little worried about Jamar Chase. Dago and I talked about adding Jermaine Burton, maybe adding Yoshivas, maybe in case this goes bad down the stretch with the status of Chase and T. So I don't think it's likely, but it's just in my head. Any thoughts on T and Chase down the stretch now that we know the Bengals are almost certainly out of it?
I think that the correct lean in these situations, more often than not, is to just bet on these dudes being competitors. Joe Burrow is a competitor. Jamar Chase is a competitor. They have, as I mentioned before, Joe Burrow is leading the NFL in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Jamar Chase is leading the NFL in receiving touchdowns. Those marks, I mean, you can get incentives for that shit. Those are things that, you could tell your kids about, I mean, like those things, milestones matter.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about those two guys. In T. Higgins' case, I might be a little bit concerned.
Okay. The other thing is they're wearing out Chase Brown. In the 4 games since Zach Moss went down, 96 touches for Chase Brown, 1 for Khalil Herbert, and none for anyone else. I'd love to see them keep this up. I have like a ton of Chase Brown. It's in some of my best stuff. I just don't know how smart it is to try to give Chase Brown 20, 30 touches a game here for the next month. But yeah, hopefully they do. And he's held up really well so far.
I think that I saw that their playoff percentage at like 9% or something right now.
Yeah.
Just hopefully they can stay, so it doesn't hit 0.
Above 0, yeah.
Yeah, as long as it stays above 0, I think that they'll continue to roll with Chase Brown.
Okay. Broncos are having an incredibly impressive season. Last night they moved to 8-5. Same record as the Ravens, by the way. Broncos moved to 8-5 with a win over the Browns. I didn't think it was Bo Nix's best game. The defense gets 2 pick sixes. They score 41 points here. They get the win, and now they go into a bye. Evan, what do you think of Broncos' win in that wild one over Jameis last night?
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos showed that they can have another big offensive performance against a pretty, talented, at least, Browns defense, which is probably underachieved over the course of the year. Javonte Williams has been terrible, remained terrible here. I saw Sam Sherman, our old buddy, our retired 26-year-old, it must be nice, by the way, talking about how he thinks that they should just reduce the backfield to Audrey Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin and maybe use Javonte Williams in that Ezekiel Elliott pass pro third down role. And I think that actually makes sense. He's their best pass protecting running back. I think that's probably the reason that he stayed somewhat relevant, because he's been all over the place and up and down, mostly down in terms of his efficiency as a ball carrier.
Yeah, I just think it's a hot hand thing, and they're sticking to that, right? McLaughlin had the hot hand last night, and he ended up with 14 carries. It's going to be really hard to project. We've been going back and forth on Estime and Javonte and McLaughlin all year. I'm real hesitant to say that this is what they're going to do next week, but certainly the McLaughlin stuff was interesting. Other thing that I wanted to highlight was Week 17 Fantasy Championship Week. Broncos get to play the Bengals, and weather permitting, that's going to be a good spot for a running back that you like or Bo Nix, streamer, etc. Houston, This was, Jacksonville was the best possible matchup this season for quarterbacks. And CJ Stroud was fine. He was not great. He dropped back 38 times. He turned that into 242 passing yards and 1 touchdown. There was a play where Tank Dell's just wide open down the middle, and it turned out to be a really long throw, too long. But last year, I feel like CJ Stroud got that out earlier, and Tank Dell ran under it, and they had a huge play. And I talked about this a bunch on the solo pod. Just something seems off between Dell and Stroud, and maybe it's just variance, and last year was good variance, and this year's bad variance. I think that's the most likely explanation, but something does seem off with Stroud. Everybody's saying it's a sophomore slump. Stroud was a fluke last year. I don't think any of that is really the case. It's just they've been running really bad on near misses. But to fail here, not fail, but to not smash against Jacksonville was pretty frustrating to me. Evan, any thoughts on Texans game against the Jaguars?
Yeah, well, we saw the Texans go up against the Titans last week. Really good run defense. Joe Mixon gets stymied. Now he gets a good matchup, and he's back to 24 touches, over 5 yards per carry. Another big game. Nico Collins continues to look just absolutely uncoverable, like one of the best, top 5 receiver in the NFL. He hasn't quite produced like that since he came back from the hamstring because he's had these touchdowns called back, but went for 119 in this game. Obviously a lot of confidence in him going forward. Dalton Schultz finally did something.
Yeah.
He's had a really unimpressive season overall. Has been outscored by Cade Stover at times, but he had 5 for 61 and a touchdown on 7 targets. I think we know the issues with the Texans at this point. It's nice that they faced a really, really bad defense and showed some signs of life here. But, the Texans of last year would have dropped 40 on the Jaguars, and they only get 23 here.
Yeah. Dalton Schultz showing up, and to me is a bit matchup based. I wouldn't chase that, but it's at least good to see that he can still do it in Dalton Schultz.
I did find it funny that, so I was scrolling Twitter, and I saw that you posted a video of Stroud missing Tank Dell, and you were like 100% of the time, 2023 Stroud hits Tank Dell here or something like that. And then maybe like 2 hours later, I saw the exact same tweet and almost the exact same sentence from Dov Kleinman, who may or may not be a real person. And I was like, wait. Didn't Adam tweet that earlier? And then I was like, I don't care. And then I saw you leaned into it. So I like that.
Yeah. It wasn't a great tweet. What I was trying to say
it wasn't even a good tweet.
I was trying to say that Tank Dell has ran bad this year and Rye ran really hot last year. I didn't do a good job of the tweet. And then this guy steals it for what? Like, people are like, oh, you're just trying to get your clicks and you're trying to get your blue check money. Buddy, I get paid roughly on average about $12 every 2 weeks from Twitter for my tweets. $12. I'm not going to tweet something to try to get engagement for $12. Believe me, I don't mind getting $12, but I'm not going to tweet something I don't believe over $12. So that was part of it. And yeah, this Dov guy is just, I don't know. It's not a real person. I don't know what it is. It's an engagement farm for who knows what it is, man. Who knows what's going on there. But yeah, if you want to follow that saga, you can head to my Twitter. Colts. Anthony Richardson gets a win in New England despite completing just 12 of 24 passes for 109 yards. He did throw 2 touchdowns in this game, got intercepted twice. But the reason to me that he's like coming on in fantasy now in a big way is the designed runs. Since coming back from the benching, 10, 8, and then 9 designed runs in these 3 games for Anthony Richardson, it is very hard to fail as a quarterback when you're getting 8, 9, 10 designed runs in a game, not to mention scrambles and tush push or whatever else. So Anthony Richardson is certainly an asset here, Evan, but remains a struggle as a passer. What do you think of Colts game in New England?
Yeah, and 109 passing yards. Nobody in the receiving game is going to do anything when you get 109 passing yards. They are going into their bye now. They've had a ton of offensive line injuries. Josh Downs missed this game. Hopefully they can get some or all those guys back after the off week.
I should note that A.D. Mitchell, Anthony Richardson did throw a good ball to A.D. Mitchell. And if you want to see that, I tweeted that one too. A really good ball, and A.D. Mitchell just dropped it. Could have been an easy 40, 50-yard touchdown there for A.D. Mitchell. Jonathan Taylor, 100% of the running back opportunities here, just full-blown workhorse on Jonathan Taylor right now. It's still a bit scary because of the Richardson stuff, but bye at Broncos versus Titans at Giants. So toughish schedule here for JT, but usage is going to be very, very good. Jaguars. Jaguars lose its game, fall to 2-10. Story of the game was the hit on Trevor Lawrence as he's sliding. Defender comes in, hits him in the head. This is exactly the kind of stuff that the NFL was trying to avoid. Now Trevor Lawrence has a concussion on top of this shoulder injury that he's dealing with. I did think Mac Jones came in and actually played well, or not, but better than T-Law was playing. Mac Jones came in.
I thought he played great.
Yeah, so that was at least something the Jaguars can point to. But yeah, what do you think of the hit, Evan, and any other thoughts on Jaguars game here?
Well, I'm going to have a very unpopular take on the hit. So, I don't want people to get mad in the YouTube comments. God, so soft. Anyways, Mac Jones, I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. Mac Jones, I thought played great off the bench. I don't know if that's predictive of anything going forward. That's not an easy defense to play against either. The Texans came in, engineered 2 touchdown drives, took 0 sacks, 235 yards on 32 dropbacks. Pretty good. I mean, better than I would anticipate. I mean, are we going to have any takeaways from like Parker Washington having a big game? Brian Thomas, I know he saw a lot of Derek Stingley in this game. Still had 4 for 76 and a touchdown. Evan Ingram did Evan Ingram stuff. 7 catches for 41 yards.
Yeah.
The backfield is again, a 2-man rotation, which is not fun.
Well, we're waiting for your controversial take on the Trevor Lawrence hit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he should have been suspended. I thought it was a bang play. I agree with D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, what they've said about it. And I also don't think that he's a dirty player. John Runyon, who called him out as a dirty player, was a dirty player when he played. There's like a little montage of Aziz Al-Shahir going around of him like getting in fights and stuff. I mean, first of all, he's like a run and hit physical linebacker. And like one situation, he's surrounded by players from the other team. And he's like, he's getting ganged up on by other people when he hits somebody or he grabs somebody's face mask. That's not dirty. That's like defending yourself. That also happened at the after this hit. I actually agree with Kurt Benkert. I thought that Trevor Lawrence slid late. I don't ever want to see anybody injured in any way, get concussed. Absolutely not. That was terrible. I do think it was maybe worth a penalty, a 3-game suspension to pull a bunch of money out of the dude's pocket for a bang play. I don't think is okay. The NFL does this for PR purposes, and I don't think it was a dirty hit.
Yeah. Even if it was, we see dirty hits every week in the NFL, and guys don't get suspended. Maybe they get kicked out of the game. Maybe they get a flag, whatever. They don't usually get suspended, almost never for 3 games. So, yeah, clearly a PR thing as everybody was freaking out about the T-Law stuff. But, yeah, it was certainly a tough hit to watch. And shout out to the Jaguars for stepping in there and defending. By the way, Brian Thomas, last note here on this, he had 476-1 on 10 targets. He was real close to an absolutely massive game, like real close. And Brian Thomas is an absolute baller. Hopefully he can do it with T-Law if he comes back or Mac Jones. They have a reasonable schedule here down the stretch. Face the Titans twice. Raiders. This was the Black Friday game. Aiden O'Connell goes to Kansas City and throws for 340 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, at this point, Evan, maybe we can say that Kansas City's defense is not that good. I don't know. But either way, Bowers shredded them. I mean, Bowers 10-141. Absolutely insane year Brock Bowers is having. But yeah, any thoughts on Raiders game Black Friday in Arrowhead?
Yeah, there were just a shocking amount of plays where it just seemed like Brock Bowers was not covered. Yeah, the Chiefs have some issues on defense. Their pass rush isn't particularly dynamic right now. I think that Trent McDuffie would be a lot better as a slot corner. That's really what they drafted him to play, but he's their best outside corner, so they have to play him there. Yeah, their defense is definitely taking a step back, I think, for those reasons. They're still playing pretty good run defense. Although the Raiders, I mean, Sincere McCormick had some nice runs
Yeah.
in this one.
Yeah, we'll see about Madison and Zamir White here, but Sincere McCormick as kind of a more base-ish back and Abdullah in the pass game would be the way that I think they'll play it going forward if Madison and Zamir are out again. They play at Tampa this week. That's obviously a really good spot for pass games. Bowers and Jacoby Myers are going to play once again. Dolphins. So Tua Tagovailoa finishes with monster numbers here in this game. This was the last Thanksgiving game. That's not really what happened. I mean, Dolphins went there and got smoked. They were down 24-3 in Green Bay. Ton of garbage time throws get you a huge game from Tua, Jonnu Smith, Tyreek. I would note that Tyreek's touchdown was actually targeted for Jonnu Smith, gets tipped, and Tyreek catches it. So, like, Jonnu could have even had a bigger game. He continues to be the focal point of the pass game ahead of Tyreek, ahead of Jalen Waddle, which is wild. Evan, what do you think of Dolphins game in Green Bay on Thanksgiving night?
Yeah, I don't know what you think about the first read percentage stats. I think that at very least that they're interesting. And if you look at the first read percentage of targets for Tyreek Hill, like they've been coming down. Like he's not necessarily the featured part of the passing game anymore. And I think that's borne out in his production as well. And Jonnu Smith is, God, I mean, he is like, he's the number one overall fantasy tight end since week 7. He's locked in. Jalen Waddle did not build on his big week 12. So yeah, I mean, I still don't buy the narrative that the Dolphins just like they struggled because it was cold. I mean, they still wound up putting up numbers.
Yeah,
it's not like they're incompetent when it's cold. It really wasn't even that cold.
Yeah.
Either. So I don't think that was the reason that they struggled, even though everybody likes to put that on them.
I think on the first read target share, on the first read target stuff, I think it's for sure interesting. A lot of this stuff we found just all shakes out in raw target share. In other words, like if you're getting first read targets, if you're getting a lot of separation, you get targets, and that is the most predictive way to look at it and who's actually earning targets. Other thing that I'd say, Evan, I don't know if you saw, they're going after my boy. They're saying that Mike McDaniel, because he was shivering on the sideline and standing next to a heater, he's lost a locker room. That's what they're saying about Mike McDaniel. I don't think Mike McDaniel's done a good job this year at all. But I don't know about the shivering stuff. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, he's done a good job when Tua's been in there. Yeah. They had won 3 in a row before this.
That's true.
This was a really tough spot.
That's true.
Like at Lambeau, I don't care if you're from Miami or wherever, going to Lambeau to play, like in Kevin Cole's power rankings, he has the Packers as the number 6 team in the NFL. Yeah. This was not an easy spot whatsoever. It's not surprising that the Dolphins lost. Like, no one should be surprised by that.
By the way, in the 8 games that Tua has started this year, Devon Achane is on pace for 102 catches. He's caught 48 balls in 8 games. It's just ridiculous. 102 catches from the running back position is like prime CMC stuff. So crazy. Patriots lose this game 25-24 at home to the Colts. More of the same on the offensive line. Drake May takes 4 sacks. Offensive line is a mess. But you can see it on Drake May. 24 of 30 passing, 5 carries, 59 yards rushing, and he likes throwing to Hunter Henry weekly. I mean, 9 more targets here for Hunter Henry. In terms of like cheap punt tight ends, Hunter Henry is one of the ones that I feel best about on a week-to-week basis. Evan, any thoughts on Drake May's latest performance here home against the Colts?
Yeah, and Hunter Henry was really good. He still got vultured by Austin Hooper. I mean, they're like back to a 2 tight end offense, and it makes sense because they don't have really anything at wide receiver. It was nice to see Ramondre Stevenson get back in there. He had a horrible game the previous week. He got vultured by Antonio Gibson, but he ran the ball real well against Indianapolis. Most running backs do. I just thought that this was a really efficient performance from Drake May, who in the previous week was kind of all over the place. He was a lot more in command in this game, I think.
Yeah, pretty brutal stretch here coming up for the Patriots. They have a bye this week, and then in week 16 and week 17 at Bills versus Chargers. I mean, that's pretty tough spots for Drake May and this offense. Jets, another embarrassing home loss for the Jets. Despite getting out to a 14-0 lead in the first quarter, They were up 21-7 after a kickoff return touchdown, and then they scored 0 points in the final 2.5 quarters of this game, lose 26-21. I thought Devontae Adams had a good game, or at least statistically, he had the touchdown, whatever. He could have and should have had a huge game. And maybe he's just like a step behind, and Aaron Rodgers a step behind. And that's what happens when you're 32 and 40, whatever. Just another sad state of affairs for the Jets here. Evan, what do you think of their game against the Seahawks?
Well, we were getting questions about whether we thought that the Jets had like given up or thrown out in the towel. I think we can say, based on this performance, because they led most of the game, if I recall correctly. They led like for 3 quarters. It's just Aaron Rodgers just isn't very good. His offensive line isn't very good. The defense obviously has underachieved all year. Man, Garrett Wilson ran a sick route from like the 10-yard line. I mean, just that was improvisational and gets wide open, and like Aaron Rodgers just misses him high.
Yeah.
That's like the story of the season for the Jets. I thought that was the Jets season in a microcosm.
For sure. Last note I had on the Jets is Breece Hall. We talked about the Connor Hughes report Sunday morning, said that the Breece Hall knee injury was worse than the Jets originally let on. He played in this game. He played 42 snaps compared to 19 for Braylon Allen. Now that the Jets are, I believe they're officially eliminated or almost, I'd want to have Braylon Allen on my bench if he's available right now. I mean, I've wanted to have Braylon Allen on my bench all year, but if he's out there, you got to have him, because if they shut Breece down at some point with this knee thing, we're going to get a ton of Braylon Allen, and that's actually pretty exciting. Steelers. Clearly, it was a good spot for the Steelers offense here against this really bad Bengals defense, but I did not expect 414 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns from Russ Wilson, especially when George Pickens only got 74 of those yards. I mean, if you told me that Russ Wilson threw for 414 yards, I would have said George Pickens had 200. And so it was kind of a weird run out in how flat the targets were and the production was. But man, this is like the best passing game of Russ Wilson's career. Evan, what do you think of Steelers' win in Cincy?
Yeah, he threw for 414, which is the second most of his career. And Russell Wilson has started a lot of games. On passes of 10-plus air yards, he went 8 of 9 for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he can throw the ball down the football field as well as anybody. The Steelers averaged 8 yards per play. I know you're a big yards per play guy. 8 yards per play is ridiculous. Najee Harris, over his last 6 games, his touch counts, and he's been losing work to Jaylen Warren. But Arthur Smith is so hell-bent on running the ball with volume and then throwing the ball downfield with Russ to Pickens that Najee Harris gets his. It doesn't even matter that Jaylen Warren is playing 40, 50% of the snaps or whatever. Over his last 6 games, Najee Harris, 22 touches, 18, 22, 21, 22, 21. I mean, that's a bankable workload regardless of what Jaylen Warren is doing.
For sure.
Pickens had a nice game. 3 for 74 and a touchdown. He also committed 2 personal foul penalties. And after the game, Tomlin is like, this kid has got to grow up. Yeah. But, I mean, it's not like they can sit him down or anything like that. I mean, I think they have a 2-game lead now on the Ravens.
Sounds right.
In the AFC North. Yeah, I mean, and they're a complete team. I mean, they can rush the passer. They're fine against the run. They've got good cover guys. Joey Porter Jr. in this game committed 4 penalties against T. Higgins. But guess what? Like, he didn't get beat for big plays on those 4 plays. And, they can run block, and they have, they have a clear-cut identity on offense. I mean, I think they can win a playoff game.
Pat Freiermuth has come to life a bit here lately, but it's tough because his role hasn't really changed. He just happens to be more productive lately, but it's still good to see on Pat Freiermuth. Shout out Penn State. And then the schedule for the Steelers, one of the toughest 4-game stretches of their season here. Browns, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs. Next 4 games for the Steelers. Last team to hit today is the Tennessee Titans. They went into this game with some optimism. Will Levis was playing better, and then they just faceplant. They get down 28-7 at halftime, and lose 42-19 to the Commanders. Titans only ran 50 plays in this game. Of course, you get another Nick Westbrook-Akine touchdown on low volume because you get that every single week. Evan, what'd you think of Titans game in Washington?
Yeah, Westbrook-Akine had 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns, yeah.
I mean, how many touchdowns does he have?
He has 20 catches on the year and 8 touchdowns.
I mean, that is ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, they ran 50 plays, Will Levis had 18 completions. They had 11 carries as a team.
Yeah.
So no one did anything in fantasy except for Nick Westbrook-Akine, who, I don't know, are people starting him?
I mean, I'm sure some people are. I'm not, but I'm sure some people are. Yeah. Other note that I had here, Tajay Spears returned from the concussion in this game, but he only got 1 opportunity. Tony Pollard handled 40 snaps compared to Tajay Spears 14. So Tony Pollard looks way ahead of Tajay Spears there, and that's probably pretty well deserved. The other thing is the Titans schedule. If you are a DraftKit subscriber and you go to DraftKit, go to our DVP tab, you'll find our projection for softest playoff schedules. Titans have an absolutely incredible playoff schedule for Calvin Ridley, Will Levis, and even, yes, Nick Westbrook-Akine over their final 3 games of the fantasy season. Jaguars, Bengals, Colts, Jaguars. Yeah, next 4 games. Jaguars, Bengals, Colts, Jaguars. So something to hang your hat on there for the Will Levis Ridley bros. All right. That is going to do it for this look at each team ahead of week 14. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go ahead and be sure checking that out to see all the highlights and the ticker and the stats and the rankings. If you are watching this on YouTube, we'd really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button. This offseason, of course, we will have tons more free content in addition to the free content through the Super Bowl. For Producer Ryan, for Producer Luke, for Evan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.